This is what I use. This is my go-to Oracle stuff for solo games. And this would help miniatures gamers too. There's some good stuff in here for helping you generate your stories. Drive Through RPG has it. It's also a PDF. I got a print copy of it. Mythic, it's called. The Game Master Emulator. Create dynamic role-playing adventures without preparation. And it's pretty good. On its own, it's pretty good. But what I use it for, specifically, is... And there's a lot of good parts to it. What I love it for is the Oracle. And if you don't know what an Oracle is, it's kind of something I've used in my miniatures gaming as well as my RPGs. An Oracle is where you roll a die, typically a simple D6, but there's all kinds of variants, to determine what something does or what occurs or what event happens or what choice is made. It's a simple D6. And you basically give things a value on that 6. Oh, there's a 1 in 6 chance that the arrow ignites the oil. The flaming arrow ignites the oil. Or maybe there's a 3 in 6 chance that the unit will stand its ground and fix bayonets. Or maybe there's a 4 in 6 chance that they'll charge forward or instead of running back and reforming. You know, that's all it is. That's the Menser method. Menser, of course, was one of the co-authors of D&D, and he used this all the time, this D6 die oracle, essentially, to make decisions or decide what happens quickly and almost randomly. Well, it is random. But you put in the input. You create the odds with a simple, just thinking about it. You know, what are the chances? 50-50? Okay, that's a 3 in 6, you know. So if you roll 1 to 3, it occurs. Or whatever you want to do. And this basically is kind of like that, but it doesn't use a D6. It uses percentile dice, or a D100, to decide what happens. If I could find the damn page, here it is. It's called the Fate Chart. And essentially what you do, if you're using the whole system here, you cross-reference the chaos rank of the situation. When is this happening? Is this deep during the adventure and a lot is happening and things are just getting worse? Well, that's what the chaos rank is. If it's just the beginning, the chaos rank will be low. If you're in the thick of it and fighting numerous battles, it's going to be, your chaos rank is going to be very high. In other words, you're increasing the chances of a positive result on this fate table the more active you are. Like the chaos rank might jump up 1 after every combat, you know? So it makes things more exciting as you do it. You cross-reference the chaos rank, which is 1 to 9, with what you determine is the possibility of it happening. And there's a lot of ranges here from impossible to has to be. Like, for instance, there's has to be, a sure thing, a near thing, very likely, somewhat likely, 50-50. And under that is unlikely, very unlikely, no way, and impossible. So once you determine the chaos rank and determine how likely it is to occur, you pick one of these, you cross-reference them, and it gives you a percentage of that event being positive. In other words, yes, it happens. Like, for example, let's say we're at chaos rank 5. Ian is deep in the adventure so far. He's exploring the caverns left and right, his sword at the ready. He comes to this one door. He listens carefully. He hears something beyond. He carefully pushes the door open. It creaks, it doesn't give. He forces it open. Ugh! He gets inside and peers around the darkness that surrounds him. His torch penetrates the room, and he can see that it's this 30-foot square chamber. Now, let's say he's looking for somebody. Let's say he's looking for a lost friend deep in the caves who was abducted by some orcs. And he's been traveling through these caves. He's encountered a few orc patrols. Staying silent and hiding in the shadows, he avoided notice. Maybe he's took out one of the guards from behind and slit its throat. Quietly. Maybe that happened. That would probably bump the chaos level up one, right? He's exploring in here. And let's say he heard sounds coming from this corridor. Now, this corridor is a dead end except for this door that he just opened. But he heard something. Now, let's ask ourselves a question. Is there something in here making that noise? Is this where it happened? Let's decide that and consult the fate table. Now, it's a dead end. He definitely heard something animal-like down in this corridor. Essentially, you don't even have to roll at this point. There's probably something in this chamber. But let's say in this chamber, there's also an exit, a doorless exit, okay? We randomly determine this. There's a doorless exit in this 30-foot square chamber that goes on and out of sight from Ian's torch. So it's possible something might have escaped down there. So the logical question would be, and again, logic is important when you're using these kind of things. Is the creature here in this chamber? Now, it's not incredibly likely because there is an exit. Maybe it escaped, or maybe it was just a sound that echoed from the far corridor. Who knows? But what we do as players, or a single player, we decide, what are the odds of the creature being here? That's the question. Is the creature in this chamber? Hiding, perhaps? So what you do, you decide as a group or a solo player whether that is impossible or has to be or somewhere in between. Let's say there's a 50-50% chance that it's in here. So we know our chaos rank. Let's say it's 5. And we know the likelihood of the creature being here is 50-50. Now let's cross-reference these. Now what it tells you is there is a 50% chance on a D100 that that creature is in here. So what we do is we roll the die. Okay? And if it's under 50, the creature is encountered here. And it's up to you to decide to make sense of it. Where is it? Is it hiding? All these other things. You could decide that logically or ask the oracle, the fate chart, once again. Something that would be useful for you. Normally you'd make up your own logical decision. What happens here? One more thing about this chart, because this is fairly straightforward. It's 50 or less. There is also a chance of getting an extremely positive yes and an extremely negative no. If I roll that dice, the D100, and it's 50 or less, we know it's positive. The creature's here. However, if I load 10 or less on that die roll, it means that it is definitely here. It's exceptionally so. What does that mean? Maybe it's waiting to ambush us. Maybe it makes its presence known by dropping from the shadows. That's how we know. That's what rolling a 10 or less means. You have to make sense of it. Now, on the opposite spectrum, if I failed, I roll over 50, so it's not here. But what happens if I roll a extreme no? In this case, a 91 or higher. How would we make sense of that? We heard something here. There's an exceptional no that he's not here. Does that mean he's actually hiding? Or does that mean he's actually left the chamber and is waiting down the corridor? We don't know. You as the player have to decide what that means. Now, there are some charts and things that can happen. Like if you roll a double on your roll here, that springs a random encounter or a random event. Like you spring a trap as you stand there listening. So poor Ian suddenly has a block fall on his head as he's peering into the room. That could happen. But that essentially is the fate chart in Mythic. There's a lot more to it than just a simple D6 oracle roll that I use typically in my RPGs and miniatures games. This is really awesome. And if you're a solo RPGer especially and want to create and generate stories that make sense and are exciting and interesting, this is a great way to do it. And there's a lot more here too as well. Not that it's complex, but there's all kinds of things it takes into account as well. And that's the Mythic Game Master Emulator. I use this for a lot of different things. In particular, my AD&D solo gaming. And it's not expensive. Okay? I got this from Drive-Thru RPG. I have other games too, alternate ways to do oracles. But that's an oracle. That's what I mean when I say an oracle. It's just a way to, decide things that, I'm not prepared for. I don't want to look up the rule. I can just use an oracle. Typically for me, a D6. Just assign a 1 in 6 chance. I use that with my miniatures gaming too. Does the Panzer tank come out of the woods, or does it stay holding its ground, or does it head west toward the wall to prevent a flanking attack by the enemy? If, all things being equal, I just roll it. Simple as that. What would I do as a player? If it's obvious what I would do as a player, I just do it. Otherwise, if I can see myself taking one choice or another and I can't figure out what I would do, that's when the dice comes in. Normally, I just decide based on what I would do at that moment in the game. That's how I play both sides. That's how I make decisions in the game. Simple as that. I've talked about that before.